Alongside Blair Angulo, I am Emily Proud. Welcome into the College Football Recruiting Show. Same thing as usual. Please submit your questions in the chat. The only way you can do that is by subscribing to the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. We will answer questions at the end of the show like we usually do, but we have a treat early on in this show. Our Director of Scouting, Andrew Ivins, will be joining us to answer your questions about the updated Top 247, so start submitting them now. Also, one more thing. Please like this video so we know that you're watching. I don't know about you, Blair. I am still kind of reeling from Monday's commitment with Ryan Pelham and his adorable son, lifting him up Lion King style. But Blair, we're anticipating even more fireworks with a very special commitment next week. Elijah Rushing is committing with us on this show on Thursday. What do you think about that?
The finish line is in sight. He's taken his official visits. Now it's time for him to decide, and it's going to be a really enticing, really intriguing announcement. I can't wait to find out where he's going next Thursday here on the show.
Me either. All right, let's go ahead and hit those headlines. That's a future commitment, but we've already had some past ones to talk about. Four-star 2024 tight end Carter Nelson has picked Nebraska. The number 2 tight end in the country is now the highest-ranked commitment so far of the Matt Rule era. How can this commitment be a catalyst to more wins on the trail for Rule?
Well, Emily, Carter Nelson could become the highest-ranked in-state recruit to ever sign with the Huskers in the modern recruiting era. 5 of the top 6 players in the state of Nebraska are already committed to the Huskers, so this is a huge boost of momentum for what Matt Rule wants to accomplish in Lincoln.
Let's go to another class jewel for a new coach. 4-star safety Coy Beasley picking Purdue over Wisconsin and Pitt. He is now the Boilermakers' highest-ranked commit in the Ryan Walters era. How does this maybe build momentum for Walters early on?
Another huge boost. We should look no further than the list of 20 schools that had offered Coy Beasley, including 4 in the SEC. This is an indication that Purdue will be able to go into neighboring states and battle for top-tier talent.
All right, we said it. The updated Top 247 rankings are out, and there is no change at the top. Georgia quarterback commit Dylan Raiola remaining the number 1 player in the class. Oh, but don't worry, there were still plenty of changes. So here to help us make sense of it all is the man who leads the rankings team. It's Director of Scouting, Andrew Ivins. Andrew, you made it to the day. The rankings are released. Now you have to chill and talk about it with us. So let's start with Raiola. After watching him at the Elite 11 finals earlier this month, what did you see that solidified his number 1 spot?
Well, he wasn't our MVP for the event, and he wasn't named MVP by the Elite 11 staff, but I think Dylan Raiola, he lived up to the hype. He lived up to the billing. I thought it was a really solid performance for him there in Los Angeles over the course of the 3 days. And if you want to peel back the layer, there was some conversations about us ranking him number 1. Look, with Dylan Raiola, the thing we see with him is he has the highest ceiling of all these quarterbacks. So that's why he remains number 1, QB1, and atop the rankings. Really, this update was all about the arms. It was all about the signal callers. We had been sitting on a few different moves with the quarterbacks and wanted to get through the Elite 11 finals. We see Dylan Raiola out there. He's got an NFL-like arm. He can make a lot of throws, specifically that deep ball that some of these other quarterbacks can't make. We like the prototypical frame. So that's why he stays right here. We'll see as the season progresses. We get into the winter all-star games of maybe one of these position players, maybe a defensive lineman leapfrogs him in the rankings. But as we head into July, August in that season, Dylan Raiola is the number 1 quarterback for us. And I'll add, Dylan's going to spend his senior season at Buford High School, a power there in the state of Georgia. They open up the year against Baltimore's St. Francis Academy. That might be the most talented defense that Dylan Raiola will have ever faced. So really excited to see how he performs in that matchup.
A juicy, juicy matchup. I'm excited to see what the result is on that one. Staying at quarterback, Andrew, and the only addition among the 5 stars in this update was Julian Sayin, who was the Elite 11 MVP at the finals in Los Angeles earlier this month. What impressed you about his game and helped push him up the rankings in this latest update?
Well, Blair, you're on the rankings call, so coming into the event, I think the question for us was, hey, is Julian Sayin the number 1 quarterback in the state of California? It was kind of between him and Elijah Brown, who has committed to Stanford. Well, it took 20 minutes for us to realize it's not him versus Elijah Brown, it's him versus the field. And over the course of the 3 days, he was just super consistent. I think mechanically he is buttoned up. And when you watch the junior tape, I don't want to say it's boring, but you don't get super excited. You're right. This is a high floor prospect. How much better can he get? And then we go out in Los Angeles, see him operate at the Elite 11 finals, see him a few hours later at the OT7 championship. And I still think there's some more developmental upside with him. What I like about Julian Sayin, you dig into the resume, what he has done. 21-3 on Friday nights. His average yards per attempt is over 10 yards. He's throwing an interception just once every 56 pass attempts, and he's already played in a pro-style attack. It's not like he's some system type of quarterback. He's worked under center, so we like the entire package with him. I think we come out of the month of June, come out of the Elite 11 finals and OT7 championship realizing, hey, there is more to Julian Sayin than we initially thought. There's still a gap between Dylan Raiola, but we liked him more than some of those other quarterbacks that were also in the five-star conversation.
Julian Sayin moving up 11 spots. Speaking of 11, that's exactly how many new additions we have to the top 247 in the most recent update. The highest ranked newcomer is four-star wide receiver and LSU commit Kylan Billiot. So what did you and the rankings team like about this prospect that propelled him from outside to ranked 105th?
I got to give Gabe Brooks, our analyst there in Louisiana and Texas, a ton of credit. He said as soon as Kylan committed to the LSU Tigers, hey, you got to watch this guy. You got to watch this guy. And Kylan's kind of what I think is a product of the state of Louisiana, right? There's not a ton of camps there. There's not a ton of events. So it's really hard to get verified data points on those individuals. And there's usually a few guys that slip through the cracks. Kylan camped at LSU, ran a 4.57, dominated their 7-on-7 tournament, and then you turn on the tape, and we love him, right? From what we've gathered, he's a playmaker on the perimeter. He can go get the football. His frame reminds me of Jalen Hyatt, the former Tennessee wide receiver. I don't think he's as good after the catch when it comes to evading defenders and picking up yardage. I view him as Kylan as more of a vertical threat down the field, but a really nice find for LSU. They do this every summer, right? Every kid in the state of Louisiana seems to camp in Baton Rouge. They all want that offer. Kylan got it after earning it in front of Brian Kelly, Cortez Hankton, and the rest of that staff. And we think he has a ton of upside. One of our favorite wide receivers that we've uncovered here in the past few months.
4 other quarterbacks moved into the new top 24/7 in this latest update. TCU quarterback commit Haas Haney, Penn State commit Ethan Grunkemeyer, Will Hammond, Texas Tech commit, as well as Daniel Kalin from Nebraska. Who among those 4 maybe impressed you the most or has you the most excited, Andrew?
Well, I like all of them, right? They're all inside the top 247. Well, let's talk about Haas Haney. I call him Haas the boss. He is headed to TCU, a one-time Duke commit. This is a former wide receiver that moved to quarterback his junior season, lost his first 2 games, then rattled off, I think it was 13 or 14 straight wins to win a 5A title there in the state of Texas. This is a dual threat talent, right? He ran for 1,200 yards last season, passed for just over 2,000. But I thought at the Elite 11 finals, even though he's not the biggest guy, he was one of the best when it came to pushing the ball down the field. He's got a short, compact release. He's explosive as a thrower. I love the fit at TCU, and one of the reasons why we slid him into the top 247 is if you see where the game is going, right? You see it on Saturdays, you see it on Sundays. A lot of guys have to be able to move the chains with their legs, run those RPO looks. Haas Haney can do just that. And there are people on our scouting team that think if it doesn't work out for Haas at quarterback, we would rank him in the top 247 as an athlete because we think he could be a wide receiver on Sunday. So Haas Haney is one that I definitely want to highlight. Really like his build in between the ears. Enjoyed my interview with him out in Los Angeles. So we are big fans of him here at 24/7 Sports.
I've seen a lot of movement coming out of that Elite 11 finals, obviously. It's a lot of great talent all at once. You get to kind of compare and contrast. A lot of talent we're seeing just outside that 5-star territory. Guys like Luke Kramenhoek, who you saw there, Gatlin Bair, Charles Lester. Who among the group that's right on the edge gave you the most trouble deciding where to slot?
Well, I'm going to go with one of the few guys inside the top 247 that's not a quarterback that did move up the board, right? a lot of the rising seniors, the class of 2024 recruits, they didn't do anything over the past few weeks. They've all been taking official visits, getting the cookie cakes, doing the photo shoots, meeting with head coaches, making commitments. But LJ McCray, he snuck in there, right? I got a chance to go to his spring game right before Memorial Day weekend, and I came away super impressed. The question with LJ McCray is he has the measurables. He's over 6'6", 260 pounds, big 10.5-inch hands, 36-inch arms. Those things are levers. So he passes the measurables test. But his junior tape, he didn't really have a sense of urgency at the point of attack. I saw it during that spring game. You go back and you watch what he did against West Orange in 3 quarters of play, consistently flushed out pockets, was aggressive, showed some pass rushing moves. I've heard from different college staffers that they think LJ McCray has one of the highest ceilings in the entire 2024 cycle. They said it might not be right now, but down the line, this is an absolute NFL guy, day 1, day 2. I agree. We are big fans of LJ McCray. I think he's someone that could eventually push for a spot inside that top 32. We'll see what he does here as a senior for Daytona Beach Mainland. Shout out. That's where Vince Carter went to high school. Only 3 sacks as a junior. Let's see if he doubles or triples that number here as a senior. And I believe we're going to see him at one of these all-star games. Florida, Florida State, Auburn, Miami, Georgia, all in on LJ McCray.
Good reminder. It ain't over yet. This is just an update. They still have to play their senior seasons. So there will be a continual update throughout the fall, and nothing is final yet, so don't freak out. We got some questions, though, here for you. Hannah asking in the chat, with so many 5-star wide receivers, how hard is it to separate all of them in the rankings?
Well, I love this question because I've said it to numerous people on my team. I've said it to people in my life. I think the wide receiver board in this 2024 cycle is the hardest position to stack, right? It's 60, 70, 80 players deep in terms of just legitimate Power 5 talent, guys that we think could be difference makers on Saturdays and potentially on Sundays. And I don't want to say what sucks, but what's unfortunate is I mentioned it, right? None of these 2024s really did anything in the month of June. In the years past, we would have the opening finals, the Under Armour Future 50 event. That would be rising seniors. So we're not getting a ton of that. So it is difficult to stack these guys. And I think for us, we're going to trust our evaluations. We're going to trust our data points. We're going to lean into what we know, what we have seen from these individuals. And I think ultimately what is going to be really important when it comes to stacking them 1 through 5, 1 through 10, 1 through 15 is how they look in the All-Star games. It'll be elite going up against elite defensive backs, and it'll give us a chance to kind of see them all in the same type of setting. Not saying that's going to be the end all be all. I mean, if someone misses a game due to an injury or something like that, I mean, we will take that into account. But this cycle specifically, it's been more difficult, and I also do think it's a loaded year at wide receiver. 8,
is that correct? Are there 8 5-stars?
My
wide receiver position? There's so many.
I'm leaning on you here.
Okay, I'm pretty sure it's 8, which is a lot. I mean, this is a very deep class, as you said. This next question comes from Antoine. How close is Luke Kromenhoek away from 5-star status? We talked a little bit about it. He's just on the outside looking in, but how close is he?
Luke Kromenhoek, you got it right there, Emily. We were saying Luke Kromenhoek for the longest time. Then me, Cooper, and Bud Elliott met a Florida State fan in St. Pete, and he made sure to correct us. Luke's dad won't even correct me, so I'm glad we're on the Luke Kromenhoek train. We talked about ceiling and upside with Dylan Raiola. I think the same thing applies to Luke Kromenhoek. This is a guy, another player that is cross-trained at another position. He was a wide receiver and a safety his first 2 years. 1-year starter, took over at Savannah Benedictine School this past year, led his team to an AAAA, got to say it like that in Georgia, state title. I saw his second career start down in Miami. They played Miami Columbus, his school did. And just to see him then at the Elite 11 finals, he has grown so much. And I still think there's a ton more we can get out of Luke Kromenhoek. I think he's one of the best when it comes to throwing and operating on the move. He's got a good internal timer. He can attack different corners of the field. I think it's a great take for Florida State, who took his commitment before he had even started a game. One other nugget on Luke, it was impressive to see how he is filled out. We compare him to Ryan Ryan Tannehill, who is another guy that played wide receiver at various points in his career. Luke is up to 200 pounds. He looks great in the pocket. He's a big stature. I think he could take plenty of hits in the ACC or wherever Florida State is at some point down the line, and he's going to get right back up.
Yeah, who knows? And also, similarly to Ryan Tannehill, played at Texas A&M, but they were not a member of the SEC when he was playing. So all the conference realignment, hard to keep up with. This next one from Nittany26. Do you think that there is playing time available for Aydin Grunkmeyer down the road at Penn State with Aller and Smolik in front of him?
I think if you're a Penn State fan, you got to be excited about how this quarterback room has set up. Obviously, Drew is the quarterback of the future, but Jackson Smolik was another Elite 11 finalist. We saw him last year in Los Angeles. He showed up to that event, committed to Tulane, eventually flipped to Penn State. I think Aydin Grunkmeyer, when I arrived at the Elite 11 finals, within the first 20 minutes, the thing that stood out about him was his velocity and his zip as a passer. With that being said, I still think he is a ball of clay that can be molded into a variety of different things. He is just scratching the surface of his potential. I thought he was one of the best all week when it came to attacking over the middle. Now, on Friday nights there in the state of Ohio, we'd like to see a little bit more wins. He actually has a losing record, but we believe in the player. We believe in what he has and what he can become. And an interesting nugget, he's actually training with Drew's same quarterback coach there in the Buckeye State. Those two guys are working with the same individual. So, are we going to see him soon? I don't know. I think if you're a Penn State fan, you hope for 2 years of Drew, and then Jackson and Aydin, they duke it out. And I think that's a perfect scenario where both those guys are pushing each other.
It's a good problem to have. Next one from Wicked Bronco. What's holding CJ Carr back from 5-star status?
I think my colleague Cooper Patagna put this the best way. The week Julian Sayin had at the Elite 11 finals is the week we kind of thought CJ Carr might have, and he is right there for us. And I think I'm one of his biggest fans. He's got a prototypical frame, pushing 6'3". Interesting nugget, when I was talking to him at check-in, he is super just sharp between the ears. Told me he's nationally ranked on the chess.com app. I haven't really fact-checked that, but I like the intangibles. He's obviously got a really good pedigree. I don't think he gets enough credit for how he moves around in the pocket, how he creates. Hasn't played on the best team at the prep level. So we just want to see how this senior season goes. I mean, he is right there for us. I think Notre Dame is getting a good one. I love how he throws the football. I love his mechanics. And I thought what was notable about his time at the Elite 11, night one, a bit quiet, rebounded a big way night two during that pro day. I think pressure was on and he produced. So he's right there. And I think having seen some of these other quarterbacks the Irish have signed in recent cycles, I would rank him number one for sure.
Wow. All right. Final question from Emily P. Where are the running backs, Andrew? Just kidding. We made it through a segment without asking about the running backs. We did it.
Well, this was a quarterback-heavy update. Quarterback-heavy update. So not a lot of running back talk.
That's all right. I know you love when we ask about 5-star running backs. But thank you so much for updating us on the update, Andrew. And if you want to read the entire update, head to 247sports.com. And of course, you can read exclusive information by becoming a VIP member today. We are running a sale, literally ends tonight at 11:59 Eastern. So if you want to get that 50% off or $1 for your first month, hop on it. Also, make sure to check out the 247 Sports Football Recruiting Podcast. That is with Andrew Ivins and Cooper Patagna. They hit a milestone today. Big congratulations to them. 100,000 downloads in the month of June. So if you are not listening, you are one of few people out there. Go ahead and check out those new episodes dropping every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, wherever you get your podcasts. Let's check in with what's happening out west with our national recruiting analyst, Brandon Huffman. Huff, let's start here. At one point, it looked like Penn State, they're the school to beat for top 247 defensive lineman Benedict Ume. Then Stanford came in with a really strong official, and now there are 4 crystal balls in for him to land with the Cardinal. How did this turn so quickly?
Stanford is still Stanford. Now, they may have had a little bit of a demise on the football field the last couple of years, but when you're a high academic kid, originally from Canada, comes to the U.S. for the education and obviously the football factor into it. Well, when Stanford can present themselves to kids across the country and really across the continent, they become that much more of a threat. And so the official visit comes when Stanford's getting all this momentum with some of the commits that they were able to get in the previous few weeks. And now Stanford is sitting in a pretty position to land the number one player in Connecticut. He values academics tremendously. If you look at some of the schools that he visited too, he values football. Wisconsin, Penn State, a couple of the schools that got visits from him. But Duke there, from an academic standpoint, was involved. But then Stanford has that combination of pedigree of defensive linemen getting drafted, of a tremendous degree. You put that combination together, and if you're a parent of a player, it's hard to pass up Stanford when you're presenting all of those options. And so that's why the Cardinal now find themselves at the forefront in his recruitment.
Modern-day teammates Aydin Breland and Brandon Baker are still available, Huff, and this is a question that we get asked, I think, in the YouTube chat every week. What's the latest in both of their recruitments?
Well, and, it's funny when you say they're still available. In a lot of ways, that could be negatively a connotation that, oh my gosh, nobody wants them. No. Everybody wants these guys. They're the top two players in the state of California, and they've got kind of a who's list of schools that are after them. But there's one common thread with both of them, and that is the University of Oregon. We saw the Ducks go into Southern California last year and land Mateo Uiagalelei, so it's no surprise that the Ducks go to Bosco's rival to try to be a presence in there. With Brandon Baker, they have a little bit of an advantage. His older brother Gary played for the Ducks, so Oregon is right there with them, but there is also Ohio State, which has been a presence in Brandon Baker's recruitment for a while. Then you look at Aydin Breland, and you've got Oregon, and then you've got Georgia. Dan Lanning knows a thing or two about Athens, but Kirby Smart knows a thing or two about winning national championships, which he's done the last couple of years with some quality defensive linemen, a number of first-round draft picks on the defensive line. So naturally, Georgia is the factor there for Aydin Breland. But can Oregon go 1 or 2 for 2 at Mater Dei? They would like to think so, but Ohio State and Georgia, those two Peach Bowl foes, would like to have a word about trying to get those guys out of the Pac-12 footprint. And Blair, you and I talked about it on our old Let's Pour One Out for the West of the Rest. We used to talk about how teams would come out onto the West Coast and be able to present a compelling case. With so much uncertainty about the Pac-12 right now, Georgia and Ohio State guarantee are hammering those with Breland and with Baker respectively.
All right, we are rocking and rolling on the College Football Recruiting Show, but I have just been informed that less than half of you watching right now have hit that like button. So please go ahead, hit the like button. We love to see that number go up because now we know that you're engaging, you're watching, you're having fun. And also, it's a like button. It is definitely a positive thing. So go ahead and hit that. Speaking of Oregon, though, you got Kamar Mathoudi, Dylan Williams, Dewan Riggs. I mean, they're all looking hard at Oregon right now, and the Ducks are already a top 10 team. But if those guys join the fold, I mean, how high is the ceiling for Dan Lanning's 2024 class?
Well, that's what's so scary about what Oregon could do is because they close so well historically. They've always done a great job in that December rush or in the February final rush. So they're sitting in a good spot right now with a couple of guys in Breland and Baker, but then with Kamar Mathoudi, with Dylan Williams, with Dewan Riggs, with Elijah Rush, and there's so many other players that they could add to this mix that this could end up being a top 5 class nationally, maybe even higher. And I think that this class can only get stronger for Dan Lanning. They're willing to go toe-to-toe with USC in Southern California. They're willing to go toe-to-toe with the Georgias and the Ohio States for West Coast kids. They're willing to go into the backyard of SEC schools and try to compete for those guys as well. So right now we look at where Oregon's sitting, and this is nowhere near where their final mark is going to be. When we talk about Stanford's class, they're done with the majority of their heavy lifting. Oregon is just getting started. So if you can add a Kamar Mathoudi and a Dylan Williams into the mix, a Dewan Riggs, that class continues to trend up to be in the top class in the Pac-12, especially come signing day. But now you're in the conversation to potentially be a top 3 to 5 class nationally.
And another player that could join the Quack Attack is 5-star elite edge rusher Elijah Brushing, Huff, and he's down to Oregon, Arizona, Notre Dame, Tennessee. Those are the finalists. What are some underlying factors that could be in play here with a week to go?
Well, Blair, nobody has covered his recruitment better than him, better than Elijah Rushing's than you. I mean, you've been on this one from the forefront. And so when you have those 4 schools there, you've kind of cautioned and said, hey, do not sleep on Arizona. He is in Tucson. He is a South Point Catholic product. So you cannot sleep on Arizona there, even though they're kind of one of those old, Sesame Street. One of these teams is not like the other. You got a lot of these blue bloods, but then you have Arizona having that hometown factor. So can Jedd Fisch pull off an absolute coup like he did 2 years ago when they were able to get Tator McMillan out of Southern California, away from USC, away from Oregon? But this would resonate on an even grander scale because you look at those other finalists. Oregon's there, Notre Dame's there as well. So you look at that Final Four and you think Arizona's probably running 4th there. But no, Arizona's very much a factor. Oregon, obviously a huge factor, and you can never sleep with Notre Dame when it's on a private school, at a Catholic school. So this one is going to be very fun to watch over the next 7 days to see where he ultimately ends up. But I would not sleep on the hometown Wildcats. Jedd Fisch has them trending upwards. They are more of a factor in this race than I think people are giving them credit for, because they may not have the logo from a football standpoint that the other ones have, but they're very much a factor. Don't sleep on Arizona here.
Okay, you said it'll be fun to watch over the next 7 days. You can watch it happen live right here on the show. As a reminder, make sure, thank you, Hup, that you are subscribed to this channel, 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. We are nearing 100,000 subscribers. So if you want to be a part of an exclusive bunch, make sure that you are subscribed. So we joke that June is the new December, but the numbers do not lie. We are nearing close to 500 total commitments in the month of June alone. These schools in particular you're looking at right now had a fantastic month. 22 commits for the Cardinal, pretty impressive. Behind them, you got Duke, Nebraska, Georgia Tech, the aforementioned Arizona. So those are the schools that we will be discussing in our June boom or June bust segment. So I'm going to ask Blair, is it just numbers, or is it actually quality talent that these schools are adding? So let's start with the number 1 team on that list, Cardinal. Troy Taylor entered the month with 4 commitments in this class. Now that's up to 26. So looking at the additions as a whole, June boom or bust?
We have to start with a boom, Emily. It wouldn't be boom or bust without, we have to start on a positive note. I think Stanford has done a tremendous job during the month of June. The headliner obviously being top 24/7 quarterback Elijah Brown. They also got 4-star wide receiver Emmett Mosley from Southern California, who they jostled for position with and ended up winning that battle. And it's an interesting one because this is a new team with a new offense and a new coordinator, new head coach, so they have to sell a program without really having kind of the examples to lay out. But I think this is the power of Stanford, right? This is the national approach that Stanford can take on a recruiting front. Forget about NIL, forget about collective. This is the old school hard sell. Stanford's education. We're going to impress the parents on your official visit. I think this is boom all the way. Also, really like what they did in the state of Florida, going out and getting Dylan Stevenson, who had offers from Miami, from Florida State, and from Florida. So Stanford really being able to kind of flex their recruiting muscle and showing that they can be a national power once again.
Yes, I comment earlier from Andrew saying, let's be honest, who wouldn't want a Stanford degree? Clearly that is working on the trail right now. Speaking of another school I could not get into, Duke. They too started the month with just 4 commits. Since then, Mike Elko has made 16 commitments, adding them, putting him right outside the top 25 in the national rankings. So was it June boom or bust?
Give me bust for the Dukies. Unfortunately, they're just outside the top 25 in the 24/7 Sports team rankings. But Emily, we know that we love to go and watch the average rating per commit, and they're outside the top 35 for that one. So from a quality standpoint, not quite measuring up there with some of the other programs, but there were some things to like about what they did in the month of June. I really like the safety that they got out of the state of Texas, Paul Menke Jr., 6'2", 180, really rangy, a ball hawk of sorts, a player that's really heady and can kind of contribute in run support as well, go into the box. And then they went into the state of Georgia and got cornerback Chase Tyler. This is a player who oozes upside. He's about 6'3", 170, has the length, has those physical instincts and the traits that you like to see. So some interesting pieces among this group that they brought in June, but I don't know if the quality is quite there. So I'm going to go bust on the Duke Blue Devils.
All right, just have to mention, as we're doing this segment, I am certain that there are commitments happening, and these numbers are ever-changing. But as of this afternoon, Matt Rhule in Nebraska added the third most commits in the month of June, with 15 total. So the class now has its headliner in Carter Nelson. So overall, has this been a June boom or bust?
Another boom. Anytime you add the top-rated player in the state, a top 40 player nationally, you got to go boom. This is what Nebraska hopes to do, and this is what that fan base was hoping that Matt Rhule could do on the recruiting trail. Have we forgotten that they lost out on the Dylan Raiola sweepstakes earlier this offseason? I think we have. I think that Daniel Kaelin, he showed enough at the Elite 11 finals to make you feel good about what that quarterback room could look like for the Huskers in the future. Now you bring in his best friend, or a quarterback's best friend, that would be tight end Carter Nelson. You beat out the likes of Georgia, right, which has been recruiting the tight end position at an astronomical level. You beat out a place like Notre Dame, which had also been producing some NFL tight ends, and you bring in a top in-state prospect to, in a way, headline that offensive tack in the years to come. This is boom all the way. This is stock way up for Matt Rhule, and has yet to coach a football game there in Nebraska. So I think a lot of buzz, a lot of momentum building for the Huskers, and you have to like what they've done on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, another new staff we're going to talk about. There are a lot of wins for new staffs in the month of June. Let's talk about Georgia Tech, up to 20 commits after 14 additions this month alone. Brent Key landing in-state three-star edge CJ Jackson. So overall, though, boom or bust for the Jackets.
Give me boom for Georgia Tech as well. This is a program that finished outside the top 60 nationally in the last recruiting cycle, and they've been on a downward trajectory from a recruiting standpoint. They were slightly better than 60th in 2022. They were slightly better than that in 2021. And going back to 2020, they were actually a top 30 national recruiting team. So they're getting back to that, and I think they were able to land a number of prospect edge rushers. CJ Jackson from the state of Georgia is one that I want to highlight that I think has all the potential in the world. This is a player who I think should be on four-star watch moving forward because of what we've been able to see from him on tape. He's got kind of the measurables that you like to see. You love the motor and the way he pursues the football. I also like what they did out west, going out to the state of Arizona and getting three-star running back Jadon Matthews from Saguaro High School in Scottsdale. He's got some juice to his game. He's really electric in his space. He took an unofficial visit out to Atlanta, loved it. He went back for an official and committed on the spot. So I think what Georgia Tech's able to sell, what they've been kind of building and crescendoing up to and kind of getting back to, you know, attacking the recruiting trail really hard. I think you have to really like what they did in the month of June. So give me a boom for Georgia Tech as well.
It started on a positive, ended on a positive. It's safe to say it was a wild June. I know our recruiting staff, including yourself, is ready for hopefully a calmer July. You hear that sound, you know what it means. It is time to mark your calendar. We may be going away for the weekend. Hope at the recruiting world, it never sleeps. We have not one, not two, but 3 live commitments right here on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel on Saturday at 2 o'clock. 3-star defensive tackle David Palepale at 4, 3-star athlete Ricky Knight III, and at 5:30, 4-star offensive tackle Jaquan McCroy will make his decision. Oregon leading in the crystal ball for McCroy. Blair, how do you think this one ends up?
The Ducks have to feel really good about adding another big piece to their class. Huffman just talked about it and how big Oregon can continue to build and all the momentum that they can kind of muster up. I think this is going to be a huge week, potentially a huge month for the Oregon Ducks here as we kick off the summer.
All right, Blair, you're about to hop on a plane to Maui this weekend, going with his friend Brandon Huffman. They claim it's for this. I'm a little skeptical, though, but it is the final stop of the Under Armour Camp series, allegedly taking place on Saturday. Blair, if you are telling the truth, who are you excited to see this weekend?
I'll have to bring back some video proof for us for next week's episodes. to show that we were there for work purposes. No, I think Max Fonomoana is a player that I'm super excited to see. He was one of the best defenders in the state of Hawaii last year as a sophomore, one of those big-time hitters in that Kahuku defense that was really, I mean, difficult to score against. The brother of Brock Fonomoana, a four-star safety and a Polynesian Bowl All-Star who signed with Utah. I love what he brings to the table, and I think he's going to be exciting to watch in one-on-ones this weekend. And then Aydin Fanutai is another one I want to highlight. Manutai, he's also a really good defender, really good instinctually. I love what he's able to do in space. He's a hard hitter. This is going to be a really interesting battle to see maybe who could be the alpha from this weekend out in Maui.
I love it. Make sure you are tuned in to Monday's show because we have a live commitment. That's right. Hashtag CommitHQ. Tell your friends. Four-star edge Marquis Lightfoot will announce his decision live on our show. It is between Ohio State, USC, Miami, in-state Illinois. I'm now seeing there's a lot more. You got Alabama, you got Georgia. He has a lot of finalists here. Blair, your thoughts on where this one might end up?
He just got back from a visit to Miami. He also visited Illinois on June 20th. He was out west in Los Angeles to check out USC on June 16th. Ohio State got the first official visit, and they have all three crystal ball predictions. So the Buckeyes sitting pretty heading into the announcement for the Chicago, Illinois four-star receiver or four-star edge rusher, a player that has a tremendous upside, and it looks like the Buckeyes could be the favorites heading into this announcement.
Okay, we said it at the top of the show. Another reminder, we are thrilled to bring you a live commitment from five-star Elijah Rushing. He will announce it a week from today on the College Football Recruiting Show. His Final Four, including Oregon, Arizona, Tennessee, and Notre Dame. Huff talked a little bit about this, but he gave you all the credit. You've been all over this. So now it is your time to talk. Where are you leaning here?
Putting me on the spot for the five-star from Tucson. You know, the former five-star from Tucson, Bijan Robinson, decided to leave the state and he played his college ball in Texas. What will Elijah Rushing do? Will he go to Oregon and go play in that Dan Lanning defense? Will he stay home and play for Jetfish and the Arizona Wildcats and be that hometown hero that they want to build? I am leaning Ducks. That's where I'm going right now. But I will say that Huff is onto something when he says that Arizona could be the dark horse. Don't sleep on the Wildcats. I don't think this one is over. I don't think a decision has been made heading into this final week. But I do think that it's a battle between those Pac-12 schools right now, Oregon versus Arizona.
Oh my goodness. I love the way that Huff put it, is that the scary part about Oregon right now is they usually are a team that peaks later on. I mean, I don't know about you, but I vividly remember sitting in a studio with you in Fort Lauderdale on early signing day in December last year going, oh my gosh, did Oregon just flip another guy? So the fact that they're doing this all now in June, it's going to be a wild cycle for the Ducks if they end up with Elijah Rushing. But the only way that you can find out about that is by watching this show a week from today. We got some viewer questions here. Zombie asking, how does it look for USC and Kingston Viliamu Asa?
Right now, it looks like they've been trending up, Emily, and this is a program that I think had a lot of ground to make up. He likes Notre Dame. Ohio State's up there as well. USC got a recent visit and I think really closed the gap. For the longest time, according to our favorite analyst, Greg Biggins, it did seem like Kingston Viliamu-Asa was bound to leave the West Coast and go play in the Midwest. I think he enjoys that part of the country, and I think he understands that the development standpoint, especially in the defensive side of the ball, could be a little bit better for him in terms of his projection. But USC, I don't think we can sleep on them anymore, especially for players nearby, for players in California. And I think the Trojans have made up a ton of ground that right now it's a coin flick for Kingston.
Well, when your favorite recruiting analyst says so, then you listen. Next question coming from Austin. How do you feel about four-star athlete Jonathan Paylor and where he could be leaning?
You know, I'm not too familiar with his recruitment. You know, this is a player who I think went through the process in the month of June. I think he's still trying to figure out where he's going. I'm not sure if he's close to an announcement or close to a decision. But yeah, this one is, you know, kind of catching me off guard. I'm not 100% sure on kind of where he's at. Out of my comfort zone, out of my region, Emily. So I will have to get back to you. I'll research that and we'll answer this next week as well.
Okay. You got my number. Just call me. Let me know. A reminder. So much is happening on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel over the weekend. Again, I said all the commitments on Saturday. We got more on Monday. Next Thursday, make sure that you are subscribed to this channel. We are so close to 100,000. It would be spectacular if we got that. So make sure that you are subscribed. For Blair Angulo, I'm Emily Proud, and this is the College Football Recruiting Show.